I bet you didn't know that one of the Philippines' most infamous murder cases began in a quiet, seemingly safe suburb, unraveling into a web of lies, murder, and injustice that would haunt the nation for decades. This is the story of the Vizconde Massacre, a case that shocked the country and left more questions than answers. On June 30th, 1991, a chilling silence fell over number 80 Vizconde Street in BF Homes, Parañaque, a suburb known for its safety and close-knit community. That morning, everything changed. Relatives, worried after days without word from the Vizconde family, entered the house. Inside, they found a scene so horrific it would shatter the community's sense of security. Estrelita Vizconde was found brutally stabbed. Her daughters, Jennifer and Carmela, had suffered even more unspeakable fates. Carmela, just 18, had also been raped. The violence stunned investigators and the public. Who could commit such a monstrous act in a peaceful neighborhood? The investigation was chaotic. Crowds and media swarmed the scene, contaminating crucial evidence. There were no signs of forced entry, no fingerprints, and no murder weapon, nothing to point to a suspect. Laura Vizconde, returning from a business trip, was left to search for justice in a case that would haunt the nation for decades. The quiet house on Vizconde Street became a haunting reminder of a mystery that scarred the Philippines forever. The Vizcondes were a close-knit, hard-working family living in Manila during the 1990s. They embodied the Filipino dream, loving, hopeful, and united. Their home stood in a peaceful community where families felt safe and children played in the streets. Lauro Vizconde, the father, was a dedicated businessman, often away for work but always providing for his family. Estrelita, his wife, cared for their daughters, Carmela and Jennifer, filling their home with warmth. Carmela was a bright university student, while Jennifer, just 7, was the family's joy. Their days were simple: school, work, family dinners, and quiet evenings together. On June 29th, Lauro left for a business trip, never imagining it would be his last goodbye. That night, darkness crept in, shattering their peace forever. The Vizcondes' ordinary night became the prologue to one of the Philippines' most haunting crimes. The investigation into the Vizconde murders quickly unraveled. Forensic evidence was scarce, and the crime scene had been hopelessly compromised. The case became a national obsession, with daily headlines and a public desperate for answers. Lauro Vizconde, devastated, became the face of the search for justice, offering rewards and pleading for leads. But for 4 years, there was only silence. The case went cold, suspects were questioned and released, and theories abounded. The failure to solve the crime became a symbol of a broken justice system, fueling public cynicism and fear. If a family could be slaughtered in a secure subdivision with no consequences, was anyone truly safe? The Vizconde Massacre was no longer just a family's tragedy, it was a national crisis. The country waited, and Lauro waited, for a miracle that never seemed to come. In 1995, hope returned to the Vizconde case in the form of Jessica Alfaro, a self-confessed drug user and NBI informant whose sudden emergence would send shockwaves through the nation. Alfaro, previously unknown to the public, stepped into the spotlight with a story that promised to break open the long-stalled investigation. Alfaro claimed she had witnessed the massacre firsthand, naming a group of young men from powerful, influential families led by Hubert Webb as the perpetrators. Her accusations pointed directly at the sons of politicians and businessmen, instantly making headlines. Her detailed account painted a chilling picture of a night fueled by drugs, violence, and ultimately murder. Alfaro described Webb as the ringleader, orchestrating the horrific events with chilling precision and implicating his friends in the crime. The NBI, desperate for a breakthrough after years of dead ends, quickly embraced her story. They made Alfaro their star witness, pinning their hopes for justice on her explosive testimony. Alfaro's testimony electrified the nation, transforming the case into a sensational tale of privilege, brutality, and betrayal. The public was riveted, and the media covered every new detail with breathless intensity. But almost immediately, doubts about her credibility surfaced. Alfaro's criminal background, history of drug use, and shifting details in her story raised serious red flags for both journalists and the defense. Still, the authorities pressed on, building their entire case around her. Investigators and prosecutors worked tirelessly, convinced that Alfaro's testimony was the key to solving the case. The resulting media frenzy was unprecedented. Crowds gathered outside the courthouse, and the stage was set for one of the most controversial and closely watched trials in Philippine history. The question remained, was Jessica Alfaro a courageous whistleblower seeking justice or an opportunist, manipulating a desperate system for her own gain? The trial of Hubert Webb and his co-accused became a national spectacle. The prosecution's case rested almost entirely on Jessica Alfaro's testimony. There was no physical evidence. Webb insisted he was in the United States during the crime, presenting passports, tickets, photos, and witnesses to support his alibi. The prosecution argued the documents could be faked, casting doubt on Webb's defense. The courtroom drama pitted Alfaro's vivid story against Webb's documented alibi, dividing public opinion. Some saw the accused as privileged men evading justice. Others saw them as scapegoats. The trial dragged on for years, dissected by media and watched by a nation desperate for closure. The fate of the accused and the meaning of justice hung in the balance. The country waited for a verdict that would either deliver justice or condemn innocent men. In January 2000, the court found Webb and his co-accused guilty, sentencing them to life imprisonment. The verdict relied almost entirely on Alfaro's testimony, dismissing Webb's alibi. For Lauro Vizconde, it was a bittersweet victory. Justice, but at a heavy cost. Crowds celebrated, but the families of the accused insisted on their innocence, vowing to appeal. The conviction deepened the controversy, highlighting the justice system's reliance on testimonial evidence over forensics. Legal experts questioned whether a single witness's story should outweigh official records. The debate over guilt and innocence raged on, with the case far from settled. After a decade in prison, Webb and his co-accused brought their final appeal to the Supreme Court. In December 2010, the court acquitted them, ruling that the prosecution failed to prove guilt beyond reasonable doubt. The justices found Alfaro's testimony riddled with inconsistencies and contradictions. They gave weight to Webb's alibi, noting that official US records had been wrongly dismissed. The acquittal was not a declaration of innocence, but an admission that the state's case was too weak. Webb and the others walked free after 15 years, greeted by emotional families. For Lauro Vizconde, it was a devastating blow. The justice he fought for was gone. The case was once again unsolved, and the real killers remained at large. The Supreme Court's decision reignited national debate and left the country with more questions than answers. The Vizconde Massacre was, once again, a haunting mystery. The Supreme Court's acquittal split the nation. Some saw it as justice for men wrongfully imprisoned, others as a failure that denied the victims peace. The case exposed deep flaws in the justice system, weak forensics, reliance on unreliable witnesses, and the power of media narratives. It highlighted the divide between rich and poor and the dangers of trial by public opinion. The Vizconde case became a mirror for the country's anxieties about class, power, and the rule of law. In the end, the acquittal brought no closure. It's only more questions and deeper divisions. The truth remained elusive, and the wounds left by the massacre refused to heal. The nation was left to grapple with a justice system that seemed unable to deliver answers. For Lauro Vizconde, the acquittal was a wound that never healed. He spent his remaining years fighting for justice, but died in 2016 without closure. The case faded from headlines, but the crime remains unsolved. The real killers never found. The Vizconde Massacre stands as a permanent stain on the Philippine legal system and a cautionary tale for generations. It forces us to confront the limits of truth and justice when evidence is lost and stories conflict. Was Alfaro a liar or a witness? Was Webb's alibi genuine? If not them, then who? The case offers no easy answers, only ambiguity, sorrow, and a haunting reminder that justice is not always served. The story of the Vizconde family endures as a symbol of a nation's unresolved pain and unanswered questions.